had chronic lower back issues since middle school, so for years, that I've just kind of been living with. And then in January of, not this past year, but the year before, I got in a really bad car accident. And it got to the point where my lower back was really aggravated, so I couldn't sit for more than just a couple minutes. My knees were weak and they would pop out of joint a lot. My arms would pop out of joint, and it was just painful to do anything, to the point where I couldn't work. And it was just really hard to function. So I came to Tammy for that, because it was kind of acute emergency type thing. And things started to improve right away, and like within 6 weeks, maybe 2 months, I was back to where I had been before the accident with Tammy. And so because that worked so well, I decided that I wanted to stay with her and see if I could try to work on some of the longer term issues, the back issues, knee stuff. When I first came to Tammy, it was like last ditch, kind of desperate move, because I really needed treatment and didn't know what else to do. And Jamie knew this person who she really liked and trusted. So I came, but I was kind of cynical about it working, and I was definitely cynical about it working for the long-term issues that I have, because I've tried stretches and I've asked people's advice and I've tried a bunch of different things and it just hasn't worked. So that's how I started out. One thing that I noticed that's different about Tammy right away is that she focuses on the whole person. So even though there was clearly physical stuff going on from the car accident, the back issues are actually, from Tammy's perspective, physical but also emotional. And nobody had ever given me that perspective before. One of the things that is central to her practice is a mind-body connection and seeing a person as a whole, with emotional self, mental self, physical self. So as she explained that to me, that just makes sense to me intuitively. And the way that she talks about it, well, she has a lot of different ways of talking about it, but that our bodies manifest what's going on emotionally sometimes. Also that emotional habits or emotional patterns that we get into affect us physically, right? Like if we tend to be really hard on ourselves and not give ourselves time to rest and relax, our bodies have to compensate for that. So that makes a lot of sense to me intuitively. And one way that it showed up for me really early with my knee going out was that what Tammy told me that had to do with was a disconnect between what I really wanted or what was right for me and what I was doing. So going out of my way to please other people to the point of like not taking care of myself or pushing myself too hard. And so I started paying attention to that and noticing when I did it and backing off. And my knee went back. And it makes sense to me because I feel like that disconnect translates into not being aware of your body, right? So if you're not aware of what you really need and what you really want, of course you're not going to be aware of how you're standing or your posture or really be connected to what's going on with you. So sometimes a session with Tammy goes something like this. So I'll come in, she'll ask first how I'm doing and just get my report on how my body's feeling and what's going on emotionally and what's going on in my life. Then she'll ask me to lay down and put her hands on me and either just work physically, so work out knots and not necessarily talk, or she'll ask me about some emotion that she's getting by touching me. So it might be that she's feeling that I'm nervous about something, or that I have a sense of impending doom, or that it's been a bunch of different things. So she'll ask me about that and have me talk about it while she's working on the muscular stuff. She's maybe adjusted me, like cracked bones, like I want to say 5 times in the whole time I've seen her. So it's not, she doesn't do that with me a lot. So since I started seeing Tammy, I've changed things in my lifestyle pretty dramatically. One way is that I prioritize time to rest and time for myself to just not be productive, which I never thought of as important before. I never prioritized. So in the past, I would just kind of function and go and push until I would get sick or just like be too tired to keep going. So what I started doing is actually taking time that's just for me every day, whether it's 15 minutes or an hour, whatever I can do. And that completely changes your life if you do that. It feels different than most doctors I've been to also in that she asks me questions. So she recognizes that I know what's going on with me and that she's kind of just a translator between what my body's saying or needing, or the messages that it's sending, and me. She's just incredibly observant. I don't really know how. Like, I've had her put her hands on me and ask me a really specific question about, like, what happened with your family when you were 12 that had to do with this, you know? And then I'll say something, and she'll be like, no, it's not it, you know? So, like, stuff like that, we're just like, how do you pick that up? And then it'll turn out to be something that's totally connected that I never would have thought of. I would say Tammy's a really good person to come to if you feel discouraged by more traditional, like, only physically focused medical care. I would also say that it takes a lot of work, that it's not something where you can just come to the session and then be done. There's also, like, for lasting change to happen, you have to take what you figure out in your session and try to apply it. So it's not necessarily easy, and it also takes a lot of sticking with it. But in my experience, it's really worth it, and it's more lasting change than I've had any other way.